Chapter 26 Choosing a Concubine. Rose sat in front the loom, her fingers deftly moving over the threads as she wove the fabric. Her thoughts drifted to the recent announcement made by Lord Maximus, the ruler of the territory where she now lived and worked. Enchanted Weaver's Loom, a loom that can weave clothes rapidly, with the quality of the resulting product up to 1 grade. Price 5. The announcement had caused quite a stir among the workers in the clothing factory. Her friend and co-worker, Angeline, sat next to her. "Did you hear that Lord Maximus is looking for a wife?" Angeline asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rose nodded, keeping her eyes on her work. "I did. I heard he already has 4 wives." Angeline shrugged. "Maybe it's not enough. Other nobles have at least 3 wives and 10 concubines." Rose didn't like the sound of that. She knew powerful men like to have many wives and concubines, which is common practice in this world. However, she also knew that it was necessary, especially in a dangerous world like this. The conversation lapsed into silence as they both focused on their work. Rose couldn't help but feel grateful for her job in the clothing factory. It provided her and her family with a means of support after they had been forced to flee their home due to the war. While they were engrossed in their work, a sudden commotion erupted from behind, swiftly capturing their attention. Startled, Rose and Angeline were taken by surprise as a group of men clad in black approached them. "What is this about?" Rose asked, her hands trembling. "We have been sent by Lord Maximus to bring you and your friend to the castle," one of the men replied. "The castle? Why?" Angeline asked, clearly confused. "I don't know the details, but I was told it was for a special assignment," the man said cryptically. Afterward, they talked to Rose and Angeline, asking them to visit the castle at a specific time of the day. As the men dressed in black departed, Rose and Angeline could sense the curious gazes of their co-workers fixed upon them. "Do you think it has something to do with the recent announcement?" Angeline whispered nervously. "I highly doubt it," Rose replied. "Just get dressed and be presentable." After completing their work for the day, under the curious stares from their fellow workers, they exchanged a knowing glance and went their separate ways to prepare for their upcoming meeting with Lord Maximus. As Rose reached her home, her parents were surprised to hear that their daughter was invited by a nobleman. They knew that Lord Maximus was looking for a new concubine and they were happy for their daughter. "This is a wonderful opportunity, my dear," her mother said teasingly. "Mother, please don't get ahead of yourself," Rose replied, joking with her parents. Her father was silent, lost in thought. Finally he spoke up. "You just need to be careful." Rose nodded in agreement, knowing that her father's concern was well-founded. She reassured her parents that she would be cautious and vigilant during her visit to the castle. Her mother hugged her tightly. "Be careful, dear," she whispered. With a heavy heart, Rose bid farewell to her parents and set out toward the castle, her mind filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Meanwhile, Angeline went to the market to buy new clothes for the occasion. She wanted to make a good impression on the Lord. As she walked through the market, she saw many beautiful dresses and jewelry, but she couldn't afford any of them. She eventually found a small shop that sold second-hand clothes. After searching through the racks, she found a beautiful dress that fit her perfectly. It was a bit worn, but it was the best she could afford. As she left the shop, she saw other women at the gate of the castle who were also dressed beautifully, hoping to catch the Lord's attention. Angeline felt a twinge of nervousness, aware that the competition was fierce. But she didn't let that discourage her and continued to prepare for the invitation. Maximus sat at his desk, his eyes scanning the latest batch of candidates for his concubine. The Phantom Group had sent him a selection of the most beautiful and intelligent women in the kingdom, and he was to confirm whether they fit the system's requirements. The first candidate was a striking brunette with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. She spoke confidently and eloquently, but when Maximus ran her through the system fit detection test, her score was a disappointing 75. Next came a delicate blonde with soft features and a timid demeanor. Maximus was initially intrigued by her shy nature, but after scanning her with the system, her fit score was even lower than the first, at a mere 74. The third candidate was a redhead with fiery energy and a quick wit. She bantered with Maximus easily, and for a moment he thought he finally found one. But when her system fit detection test results came in, her score was only a disappointing 87. After several more interviews, Maximus was growing frustrated. None of the candidates had scored 90 and above, and the system required a score of at least 90. Just as he was about to be disheartened, the next candidate came. A stunning woman, cream-like skin and piercing green eyes, her score appeared on the screen. To his disappointment, she had only scored an 88. Maximus sighed heavily, leaning back in his chair. None of the women he had interviewed had met the system's standards. He dismissed the candidates with a wave of his hand. As the candidate left the room, he leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. His system was too picky. If the system didn't have any requirements, he would probably become a god right now. Maximus, feeling disappointed and prepared to end the selection process for the day, sat back on his chair with a heavy heart. Angeline was escorted into the room, her heart beating fast as she tried to calm herself down. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "Just be confident and honest." She took a deep breath and walked towards Lord Maximus. His eyes locked onto her as she approached, and he was immediately captivated by her beauty. She stood a little shorter than most, with luscious blonde hair and a curvaceous body. Maximus couldn't help but admire her stature. Curious, Maximus had his system scan her. The result appeared before him, showing a fit value of 92. His excitement grew as he realized that she met the system's criteria. With a smile, Maximus beckoned Angeline to take a seat across from him. She approached cautiously, not fully understanding the reason behind the Lord's smile. Maximus sat across and asked, "Angeline, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your family?" Angeline's voice trembled slightly as she recounted her life. "My parents were originally from another city. My father was a doctor and my mother was a skilled seamstress. We were fortunate enough to enjoy a comfortable life," she said, her eyes downcast. "But the conflict between nobles claimed the lives of my parents." Maximus listened intently. Angelina shared her story as she held the tears down her face. He couldn't bear seeing her cry, so he instinctively walked over to her and embraced her tightly. "I'm so sorry, Angeline," he said. The room fell silent, filled with the emotion that hung in the air. Maximus held Angeline, providing a comforting embrace. As Angeline rested her head on Maximus' shoulder, she felt a sense of security that she hadn't felt in years. His embrace was warm and reassuring, and she couldn't help but feel trust for his kind gesture. Chapter 27, Choosing Concubine 2. As Angeline and Maximus were engrossed in their conversation, the unexpected happened. The door swung open, and the next candidate was escorted into the room. It seemed that the escort had made an error in timing, as the previous candidate had not yet left. Startled by the abrupt entrance, Angeline shyly broke from Maximus' embrace. The one who came in was Rose, Angeline's dear friend. Rose's eyes widened as she took in the sight of Maximus and Angeline in an embrace. She almost stopped in her tracks, unsure of what to do. Sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere, Maximus turned his attention towards Rose, intrigued by her presence. She was also a beauty, despite her malnourished look. With a curious gaze, Maximus scanned Rose with the system, revealing a fit value of 89/96. Rose. Strength, Tier 0. Potential, Rare. Fit, 89/96. The parentheses indicated her original fit value, while the 89 reflected the impact of malnutrition she had suffered. He was taken aback, realizing that Rose possessed the highest fit value among his wives, surpassing the previous record of 94. Furthermore, she had an exceptional talent that was the most impressive he had encountered thus far, except for his sons. After softly breaking the embrace with Angeline, Maximus motioned for Rose to take a seat. Angeline's attention was shifted to Rose, and she calmed herself. Unsure of what to do next, Angeline seated, while Maximus turned his focus to Rose. Maximus listened attentively as Rose spoke, noticing her poise and grace. As she shared her story, he couldn't help but admire her perseverance and her courage to be able to come here. "I welcome you to our city, Rose," Maximus said with a warm smile. "It's good to know that you and your parents are safe. How are you finding the city so far?" Rose smiled back at Maximus, feeling more at ease with his friendly demeanor. "Thank you, my lord. The city is quite different from what I'm used to, but I'm slowly adjusting. I'm grateful for the kindness and hospitality shown to me and my family since our arrival." Maximus nodded in agreement, pleased to hear that his people were treating Rose and her family with kindness. "I must admit, my lord, when I came here I was surprised by the peace and prosperity of the city," Rose said, her voice filled with genuine awe. Maximus smiled. "I'm glad to hear that you appreciate our city." Maximus watched as Rose and Angeline left the room, their presence leaving an impression on his thoughts. He felt satisfied to have found suitable candidates who met the system requirements. As he walked to his chamber, a sense of anticipation filled him, looking forward to the opportunity of welcoming another valued member into his household. I will inform them again once I'm with the necessary arrangements, Maximus mused to himself, contemplating the upcoming union. He wanted to ensure that everything was planned and prepared accordingly. Taking a moment to reflect, Maximus glanced at the remaining names on the list of potential candidates. Some were located in distant territories, while others were entangled in complex situations that prevented him from meeting them at the moment. His attention then shifted to Princess Emma. Rumors of her remarkable magical aptitude had reached his ears. He would like to meet her. However, he knew that she was likely far away, probably already in the central continent. Pity that Princess Emma has already left the kingdom, Maximus thought. Her talent as a magician, achieving such strength at a young age, is indeed impressive. A hint of disappointment in his voice. Maximus sighed softly, realizing the limitations imposed by distance and circumstances. He returned his focus to the task at hand, resolving to make the best choices from the available candidates. Within the castle walls, Irene found herself deeply engaged in a conversation with her mother and her father's concubines. The topic of discussion centered around the recent conflict between the Noble Alliance and the Dukes. It was a notable subject of interest, especially considering that Irene's father, Count Marcus, and her 5 brothers were the ones leading the battle this time. As they chatted, worries etched on their faces. Suddenly, a commotion erupted in the castle. The guards hurriedly reported the arrival of 2 badly injured brothers. Panic and fear gripped the group as they rushed to attend to the wounded siblings. Irene's heart pounded in her chest as she knelt beside her brothers, her eyes filled with fear. She gently called out to them, her voice quivering, urging them to tell her what had happened. With great effort, one of her brothers, Edgar, who was barely conscious, managed to utter a few words before succumbing to unconsciousness. "Father, brothers," he mumbled. The gravity of his words pierced through their souls, heightening their anxiety and fear. Moments later, a messenger arrived, carrying a letter from Lady Diana, a dear friend of Irene's father. It said in the message that her father had been ambushed by the army sent by a duke. The news sent panic through Irene and the group of women, their faces pale with disbelief and sorrow. Amid grief and disbelief, Irene's mother refused to accept the news of her husband's death based solely on some letters. She dispatched her most trusted subordinates to investigate further and confirm the fate of her beloved husband and children. Days passed, filled with anxious anticipation. But what awaited them shattered their hopes and plunged them into the cruel reality of their loss. Count Marcus and her brothers, through their investigations, confirmed their demise. Her subordinates also discovered the movements of their father's past enemies, gathering force to attack their state. Desperation filled the air as the women of the family, her mother, the concubines, her sisters, and Irene, found themselves engaged in a heated debate, desperately seeking a solution. With their male family members still unconscious, the responsibility fell upon their shoulders to protect their home and their legacy. Amidst the chaos, Irene's eyes fell upon a bottle of wine in the cellar. It seemed ordinary, but she recalled that it came from her father's friend, Maximus. She had heard rumors that the war had not yet touched his land, which puzzled Irene. Unbeknownst to her, the Noble Alliance and the Dukes had consciously avoided that region due to numerous failed attempts by spies to infiltrate it. Fear of the unknown had kept them at bay. At that moment, Irene realized that seeking refuge with Lady Diana might not keep them completely safe since she was part of the Noble Alliance. Instead, she thought about Maximus, her father's trusted friend. Even though he wasn't with the Noble Alliance, he might offer them a safe place during these tough times. Gathering her thoughts, Irene turned to the women around her and spoke with determination. She suggested they seek refuge with Maximus, pointing out that his place could be relatively safer. She explained why she believed this was their best chance at survival and securing a future for their family. The women looked at each other uncertainly, considering their options. Eventually, they agreed with Irene. They felt that it sounded reasonable and started making preparations, working together to ensure their safety and survival during their escape. Chapter 28 Escape. In the dimly lit chambers, Irene and the remaining members of her family busily prepared for their escape. The heavy air was filled with a mixture of determination and trepidation, knowing that their lives depended on a successful departure. They gathered their valuables, ensuring that they had enough money to sustain them in the uncertain days ahead. Money was counted and placed securely in pouches, while precious heirlooms and mementos were carefully wrapped and stowed away. Every item held significance, a tangible reminder of the life they were leaving behind. Food provisions were packed meticulously, their tasteless but nourishing nature serving as a stark contrast to the rich feasts they once enjoyed. Clothes were chosen with practicality in mind. Luxurious fabrics were forsaken for sturdy, durable garments that could withstand the rigors of travel. Layers were added to combat the unpredictable weather that awaited them outside the confines of their opulent home. Among their most valuable assets were the loyal guards who had been cultivated and trained from childhood. They stood by their family's side, ready to defend and even sacrifice their life in any perilous situation. As they made their final preparations, a bittersweet realization settled upon them. The remaining states and territories they once held, symbols of their former power and influence, were discarded as insignificant burdens. In this fight for survival, their lives took precedence over any land or title. The decision was made, and with resolve in their hearts, Irene and her family into the carriage. With one last glance at the grandeur they once called home, they set forth. As the days turned into weeks, Irene and her family continued their arduous journey. The air was thick with exhaustion, their weary bodies longing for respite. And then, miraculously, a glimmer of hope, her two brothers, Edward and Edgar, woke up from their unconscious state. The reason behind their awakening was none other than the potion their father had obtained from City Birun, the only city connected to the central continent. Though the potion was scarce, their father had managed to secure a few vials, and it was this precious elixir that breathed life back into Edward and Edgar. The sight of their brothers regaining consciousness was a beacon of light in the midst of hardship. Days turned into nights, and nights turned into days as they pressed forward. Finally, the sprawling city of Moonshadow came into view. Its grandeur and vibrancy stood in stark contrast to the war-torn lands they had left behind. What truly caught their attention was the vast expanse of paddy fields that stretched before them, an unexpected sight in this unfamiliar territory. As they approached the city gates, they were taken aback by the sight of a long line of people waiting patiently. The line was filled with refugees like themselves, individuals who had sought peace from the horrors of war. They blended seamlessly into the line, their disheveled appearance and weariness camouflaging their true identity. Irene and her family, relieved by the lack of attention, joined the line like the rest, eager to enter the city and find sanctuary inside the walls. Despite the hardships they had endured, they were filled with cautious optimism. They held tightly to the hope that Moonshadow, under the rule of Count Maximus, would offer them the safety and stability they desperately sought. The city of Moonshadow loomed large before them, offering a glimmer of solace in their turbulent journey. As Irene and her family inched closer to the front of the line, anticipation mingled with nervousness. Finally, it was their turn to face the guard stationed at the gate. The guard's stern expression softened slightly as he observed the weary condition that they were in. "Names," he requested, his voice tinged with authority. One by one, Irene's family members stepped forward and stated their names. Irene Emberwood, she said, her voice steady. Edward Emberwood, her older brother. Edgar Emberwood, her younger brother. The mention of their shared surname caught the guard's attention. He knew that bearing a surname was a privilege reserved for the noble class. His duty required him to report any such occurrence to the higher-ups, ensuring the proper protocols were followed. Without a word, the guard reached into his pocket and retrieved a slip of paper. With a quill in hand, he swiftly wrote something on the paper, sealing the message with ink. As he finished, the slip burned like a small flame. The flames danced and flickered, transforming the written message into ethereal wisps of smoke. But this was no ordinary paper, it was a magical conduit, carrying the guard's report to the higher authorities within the city. The smoke billowed upwards, its trajectory guided by an unseen force until it reached its intended recipient. Shadowscribe, Tier 2, a sleek, ebony quill with silver engravings, the Shadowscribe possesses a main body resembling a small, leather-bound journal. Its sugarcane, a delicate parchment, burns instantly upon writing, transferring the message to the main body. The user can read the reports inscribed on the main body at their convenience, receiving information with swiftness and secrecy. Price 300. After a moment's contemplation, the guard motioned to Irene and her family, signaling them to follow. They were led away to a comfortable lounge area, where they could rest and refresh themselves while they awaited further instructions. Irene's family settled into the cozy surroundings, weary bodies sinking into plush chairs. The lounge exuded an air of tranquility, providing a momentary respite from the hardships they had endured during their journey. The guard, respectful yet vigilant, remained nearby, ready to attend to their needs. The lounge became a sanctuary, a space where their battered spirits could find solace. Their tattered garments were incongruous against the backdrop of comfort, but within these walls, they were given a chance to restore their dignity. Maximus sat in his study, reviewing reports and attending to the affairs of his territory. As he delved into the documents, his steward Gerald approached with a concerned look on his face. "Lord Maximus, I have received a report that the Emberwood family has arrived in the city," Gerald reported. Maximus paused, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected news. The Emberwoods were the family of his deceased father's dear friend, Count Marcus. It had been a year since they had last seen each other, and Maximus couldn't help but wonder why they had come to his city now. "Thank you, Gerald," Maximus replied, his voice tinged with curiosity. "Have them escorted to one of our guest houses. Ensure they are provided with everything they need for their stay." Gerald nodded, taking note of the instructions. "Very well, my lord. Shall I inform them of your intention to meet with them?" Maximus considered for a moment before responding. "Not just yet. Let them settle in and rest. I will meet with them at a later date. In the meantime, keep a close eye on their activities and any developments regarding their presence in the city." Gerald acknowledged the order, his gaze respectful yet inquisitive. "Understood, my lord. I will personally oversee their arrangements and relay any relevant information to you." Maximus leaned back in his chair, contemplating the significance of the Emberwood family's arrival. There must be a reason behind their visit, he thought. Chapter 29 Tier 3, Nascent Mage. Maximus, having cleared his schedule for the day, found himself with a rare to meet the Emberwood family. He would like to know what made them come here. Stepping outside the castle, he made his way toward the waiting carriage, a sleek black vehicle pulled by a pair of strong horses. The carriage set off, traversing the cobbled streets of Moonshadow City. Maximus gazed out of the window, observing the bustling activity of the city's residents. The familiar sights and sounds provided a soothing backdrop, allowing him a moment of tranquility amidst his busy days. Soon, the carriage arrived at the designated guest house. Maximus stepped out, his presence attracted attention as he made his way towards the entrance. The guards stationed at the entrance saluted him. The doors of the guest house opened, and Maximus entered, his gaze scanning the room of the unfamiliar faces of the Emberwood family. He spotted them in a sitting and engaged in a conversation. Their haggard appearance showed how they suffered before coming here. He couldn't help but notice a beauty, as her graceful presence and captivating aura caught his attention. Intrigued, he discreetly observed her using his keen observation skills. Irene Emberwood. Potential uncommon. Fit, 95. The result revealed a remarkable fit value of 95, which surprised him a little bit. However, he remained composed, not allowing his emotions to his face. With a warm smile, Maximus extended a hand in greeting. "I am Maximus, Lord of Moonshadow City. It is a pleasure to finally meet you." "Lord Maximus, it's our pleasure to be in your presence," Irene's mother Joanna spoke, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you for welcoming us to your city." Maximus gestured for them to sit, taking a seat across from them. "Please, consider yourselves welcome in Moonshadow City. You are safe here, and if you need anything you can tell me. Count Marcus was a dear friend to my late father, and I have a duty to support his family." Curious about why they came here, Maximus asked Mrs. Joanna, "May I ask about the reasons for your family's arrival in Moonshadow City?" Mrs. Joanna, composed yet cautious, met his eyes. "Lord Maximus, our journey here was born out of necessity. The chaos caused by the war between the Noble Alliance and the Dukes has forced us to leave our estate and seek refuge. With my husband's death and my son's injured, we had no choice but to seek safety and support wherever we could find." Maximus nodded, his expression sympathetic. "I understand the difficult circumstances you must have experienced." Mrs. Joanna's gratitude shone through her eyes as she replied, "We are truly grateful for your kindness, Lord Maximus. It means a great deal to us in these hard times." Maximus, maintaining his composure, continued the conversation, delving deeper into what had encountered along the way. He listened intently, gathering information and assessing how he could best assist the Emberwood family. Maximus, after settling the affairs of the Emberwood family, turned his attention to the upcoming weddings of Rose and Angeline. He made it a tradition to ensure a memorable and joyous occasion for any of his women. Dressed in his finest attire, he arrived at Rose's residence with a small entourage of trusted guards and attendants. Maximus paid a visit to her parents and wanted to personally express his gratitude to them. As he entered the house, Maximus greeted Rose's parents with respect and courtesy. He assured them that he would treat Rose with utmost care and respect. After bidding farewell to Rose's parents, Maximus turned his attention to Angeline. She had been living alone since the death of her parents. He made sure to arrange her suitable attire for the occasion. Maximus took great care in selecting a gown that would complement Angeline's beauty and that she would feel radiant on her special day. With the event fast approaching, Maximus focused on finalizing the details, ensuring that everything was meticulously planned. Maximus stood at the front of the grand hall, overseeing the festivities of the wedding. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter, music, and the joyous chatter of the guests. His children remained clueless about the occasion and playfully ran around, their innocent giggles adding a touch of lightness to the event. Among the attendees were Rose's parents, beaming with pride as they witnessed their daughter with Maximus. The Emberwood family also graced the occasion. As Irene observed the grandeur of the wedding unfolding before her, there was an unfamiliar emotion stirring within her. She watched as Maximus stood tall at the front of the hall, radiating confidence and charm. He was surrounded by his wives and children, a picture of familial bliss. Irene couldn't help but feel a pang of longing deep within her. The lavish decorations, the joyful laughter, and the collective celebration of love only served to magnify her desires. She couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to stand by Maximus' side. As the wedding progressed, Maximus' gaze occasionally shifted toward Irene, a member of the Emberwood family. Irene caught his attention as he couldn't help but notice a flicker of envy in her eyes. As the wedding festivities continued, Maximus allowed himself to be fully present in the moment, ensuring that Rose and Angeline felt cherished and loved. Maximus sat in the center of a vast chamber, surrounded by ancient runes and a mystical array. Rays of soft sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting a kaleidoscope of colors upon the polished stone floor. The Celestial Sanctum, Tier 3, a chamber adorned with celestial blue runes and a mystical array that resembles a starry sky. The runes shimmer with ethereal light, creating a serene and transcendent atmosphere for mage meditation. Increase meditation speed by 100%. Price 17,000. With a serene expression on his face, Maximus closed his eyes and began to enter a state of meditation. The air grew turbulent, aware of the immense energy that was about to be unleashed. Maximus focused his thoughts on the divine principles woven in the air. He invoked sacred mantras, resonating with vibrations echoing within the chamber. As he chanted, his body became enveloped in a shimmering aura of ethereal light, pulsating with the energy of the universe. With each passing moment, Maximus felt his consciousness closer to that divine. As he continued his meditation, Maximus began to perceive the intricate threads of arcane knowledge that bound the world together. Insights flooded his mind, unveiling the secrets of spellcasting and the intricacies of manipulating the very fabric of reality. The universe whispered its secrets to him as ancient wisdom flowed into his consciousness. A surge of energy coursed through Maximus' veins, radiating from the core of his being. He felt a transformation taking place within him, his essence aligning with the forces of magic that surged through his being. The room trembled with the sheer magnitude of the magical energy that emanated from him. In a burst of power, Maximus transcended the boundaries of a mere mage. He is beginning to become a conduit of the arcane, a vessel through which the very essence of magic flows. His spirit ascended to new heights, reaching the realm of a Tier 3 nascent mage. Chapter 30. Start the Unification. User, Maximus Shadowcrest. Strength, Tier 3 Nascent Mage Level 1, 1/1, 000000000. Potential, Rank 4 Legendary 2, 193/10, 000. Meditation Method, Chap 3 Celestial Consciousness. Wife 6. Hazel. Strength, Official Mage Level 5. Potential Uncommon. GPD 10. Erica Augustine. Strength, Official Mage Level 5. Potential Uncommon. GPD 10. Livia Silvermane. Strength, Great Knight Level 2. Potential Uncommon. Meditation, Chap 2 Moonlit Serenade. GPD 100. Luna Silvermane. Strength, Great Knight Level 2. Potential Uncommon. GPD 100. Angeline. Strength, Apprentice Mage Level 7. Potential Uncommon. GPD 1. Rose. Strength, Apprentice Mage Level 9. Potential Rare. GPD 1. Children, Lily 3 years old *years old. Liam 3/diagonalo. Max 2/diagonalo. Nathan 2/diagonalo. Laile 0.8/diagonalo. Lidia 0.8/diagonalo. Gold, 30,765. Mol. Maximus sat in his study, a sense of satisfaction washing over him as he looked at the information displayed on the system panel. After successfully advancing to a Tier 3 Nascent Mage, he felt his newfound strength coursing through his veins. Yet, amidst his exhilaration, Maximus also felt the presence of the corrosive mana in the air. It reminded him of the book he read, Basic Knowledge of Ethereum Realm, which told the knowledge that Nascent Mage is already at the peak he can achieve on this continent. The book explained that the mana required to advance to a higher realm was simply too vast. Although, you could still absorb mana after filtering out its corrosive properties. However, advancing in such a way is not recommended, as the time needed is immeasurable, considering that the lifespan of a nascent mage is only 1,000 years. As he thought about it, he came up with a solution. He could buy a filtering array from the system mall. However, after a quick glance, he set it aside for now, as it cost a staggering amount for a Tier 3 array, requiring hundreds of thousands. Maximus couldn't advance for a while. He knew that he had reached the peak of strength on this cursed continent. If he needed to advance to a higher realm, he would have to go to the central continent. However, it was too dangerous for his cowardly heart, and he felt that there was no need to hurry his advancement for now. He needed to consolidate his power, so he decided to shop for suitable spells. In the past, he bought a few spells ranging from Tier 0 to Tier 2. However, he didn't use them much, as he had purchased them to familiarize himself with magic. The reason he did so was that magic weapons of the same tier were stronger and affordable, allowing him to be extravagant with his weapon. However, now that he had ascended to Tier 3, the magic weapons suitable for his current strength were very expensive, ranging from tens of thousands to even hundreds of thousands. The cost of magic weapons and spells of the same rank was about 10 times the difference in price. Considering his lack of money, he obviously chose magic spells as they were cheaper and more versatile. Happy with his decision, he opened the system mall and started browsing for available spells suitable for nascent mages. He carefully read their descriptions, searching for the one that would match his style. After a while, he made a purchase. Flame Burst, Tier 3 High Fire Damage, Burning Effect. Range of approximately 500 meter radius. Speed of about 200 meters per second. Price 2,000. Frost Particle, Tier 3 High Ice Damage. Slow down or immobilize. Range of about 1,000 meters radius. Speed of around 100 meters per second. Price 2,000. Earthquake Slam, Tier 3 Heavy Physical Damage, Knockback or Stun. Speed of around 300 meters per second. Price 3,000. Lightning Bolt, Tier 3 High Voltage Damage, Electrification or Stunning. Range of approximately 300 meters radius. Price 4,000. Healing Aura, Tier 3 The Healing Aura skill embodies the essence of restoration, radiating outward in a 100-meter radius. It bestows a remarkable regenerative power, infusing the recipient with huge vitality. Price 4,500. Barrier Projection, Tier 3 The Barrier Projection skill grants the caster the ability to conjure an impenetrable shield, with the ability to absorb some Tier 3 damage. The protective aura extends within a radius of 100 meters. Price 4,500. Beast Transformation, Tier 3 Unleash the primal power within, transforming into a formidable beast. Enhanced physical attributes, heightened senses, and natural weaponry. Price 3,000. Illusory Guise, Tier 3 Master the art of illusion, disguising yourself as another or assuming a new identity. Can deceive and confuse up to Tier 3. Price 3,000. Mind's Eye, Tier 3 Tap into heightened perception, providing a 1,000-meter radius of vision and 10 kilometers if used in a straight path. Price 4,500. He leaned back, deep in contemplation. Although magic spells were cheaper, they were still more costly than he had anticipated, as he watched his gold points quickly reach zero. He briefly thought about his treasury and considered converting some gold coins into gold points, but he quickly realized that his gold coins were also running low. The Ethereum market generated huge profits, but it simply wasn't enough to sustain his extravagant expenses as his strength grew. As he stared at the numbers on the screen, he contemplated a solution. He knew that a Tier 3 mage was a rare entity in this continent, primarily due to its challenging environment. Perhaps it was time for him to address and resolve the fragmented situation in this kingdom. He reasoned, making excuses for his motives of accumulating wealth. In his council chamber, Maximus's mind was racing with ideas and plans for the unification of the scattered kingdom. Recognizing the significance of the matter, he summoned General Smith and General Johnson to come up with a reliable plan. Gentlemen, as the generals entered the room, he greeted them briefly with a serious expression. The time has come to unite our once scattered kingdom, restoring peace and prosperity of our land. General Smith stepped forward and declared, "My lord, rest assured that we will swiftly unite and bring an end to the chaos at your order." During this time, the soldiers underwent rigorous training. Their strength has reached that of official knights. With this army, we can overpower everything and bring unity to this kingdom. After hearing what he said, he was surprised. Although an official knight was somewhat weak for an individual, for an army, it was already overwhelming. The resources needed for such an army are astronomical. Fortunately, he bought the resonance harmonizer array, which made up for the resources needed to advance to an official knight. "I am pleased to hear of our soldiers' advancements," he replied, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "With the strength of the army and an abundant allocation of resources, we can surely succeed," General Johnson said. "My lord, we also need to establish supply chains to ensure a steady provision of food and weapons for the soldiers," he added. The three further discussed the feasibility of their plan, meticulously analyzing what was needed and what was missing. Gathering their commanders and advisors, General Smith and General Johnson called for a briefing in their military outpost. Maps and strategic reports were spread across a large table as they deliberated on their first targets. Looking at the surrounding city around their territory, and taking into account what resources they have. After a lengthy discussion, a plan was set. Stonebrick City, Pinecrest City, and Willowdale City was marked on the map. General Smith began with the discussion. "These three cities are the nearest to us, which is a suitable training target at the beginning of our campaign." General Smith mused, pointing at the locations on the map. "Their proximity to our outpost makes them ideal for swift and coordinated strikes. And finally, it was somewhat weak considering the strength of our army." General Johnson nodded in agreement. "Dividing our forces into smaller teams will allow us to attack multiple targets simultaneously. Each team will consist of more than 300 elite soldiers. It should be more than enough to overwhelm the enemy." They meticulously planned the logistics, assigning officers to lead each team and outlining the routes of attack. They took into account the terrain, potential obstacles, and defensive capabilities of the cities they were about to engage. "Our main objective is to seize control of these cities swiftly and efficiently," General Smith asserted. "We need to establish a strong foothold and demonstrate our dominance. This will not only weaken the enemy's morale but also serve as a clear message to others that we mean business." General Johnson added, "Once these cities are under our control, we can further expand our influence and unite more land. This is the first step towards achieving our ultimate goal."